Okay, hey everybody. I am back with another React tutorial slash crash course. Doing these sort of in sections just to make them a little bit more digestible. Um, and hopefully give each topic, its own respectable amount of time to go through. So what we're going to do today is go through the sort of common use for state in React, because I think that's one of the most commonly used things in React is state and changing it, etc. Um, so this is the React documentation, um, explaining states and lifecycle. Now, state is different from a lifecycle method. However, they are usually connected, as state is used in order to, or I'm sorry, lifecycle methods are used to manipulate the state. And what is React state is basically um, whatever state the component is rendering, right? So sometimes it's static. Well, usually it's not static, otherwise it would just be an HTML. For example, if you had a paragraph typed into HTML that was a paragraph tag or whatever, and you put in some, lorem ipsum text, that would be static data, right? It would never change. There's nothing, no logic to change it. However, in React, we have state, and we can use JavaScript logic through JSX to manipulate the state and have it change automatically whenever it's updated from whatever the source is. So if that sounds confusing, great. Let's get started. And just sort of go over the sort of basics of it. What we're going to be using for our JSON state is something you may have heard of, which is JSON placeholder. I think it's already there. Yeah, it's JSON placeholder.typicode.com, which typicode sounds funny. And then you just scroll down, and they have a bunch of, we're going to use to-dos. I know that's pretty cliche, but let's see, what can we use? Posts? No, that's stupid. Yeah, I guess to-dos. I guess that's why all the other um, YouTube code people use to-dos. It's like the industry standard. Even if you try to get a job and you say, "Hey, I built a to-do app on my own," it's like, very few jobs are going to consider that experience. That almost doesn't even count. I think it's good for you to do that and to learn from that for sure, and to familiarize yourself with it. But to just do that, no. That's why I prefer to teach concepts rather than just, hey, watch me code and try to copy it, because you want to grasp the concept rather than just memorizing, and then, because then you get, a code question or whatever on an interview, and you're like, I have no idea because it doesn't fit into the tutorial that I followed. Anyway, um, so this is going to be our URL. You'll see what I'm talking about in a minute. The other thing I wanted to discuss briefly, I'm just checking my notes here because I have a bad short-term memory. The difference between state and props, if you've watched or read about React in any way, you hear state and props. Basically, state is the main mamma jamma, in which it's going to be changed, um, manipulated, whatever. You can change it, basically. Props cannot be changed. And typically, props are results of state. So you can pass state into props, into uh, another component. Okay, and I think I'll get into props in the next video because it's not that difficult. but it does require its own explanation, and I'll show how state is connected to props. All right, let's see. Okay, so let's get started. So I'm gonna open my terminal. Actually, I'm gonna close that, I think. Yes. And I already created a folder, test state app. So I'm gonna do code dot to open up VS Code. As you can tell, I did it earlier when I was testing for this video. So here we are. I did open VS Code. I did, let's see, close that. I don't need this terminal anymore. Close. Okay, so I did create React app. I had to use Yarn because I'm on Windows, so I used Yarn. Yarn create React dash app, and then I named the folder test state app or whatever. And then I went through the whole process of deleting files and deleting CSS that I don't really need to begin. So it's just a blank thing that says hello world. And if you need to know how to do that, how to get started with Create React app, I have a tutorial on that, which I will link in the description below. Okay, so basically we have this. Let's get this running with the terminal. Open terminal in VS Code and then type enter, and then we're going to do npm start. Pretty standard. It's going to run, and then it automatically opens our demo server, or whatever you want to call it. You know, it's like a pretend server in our hello world, which we have over here. So there we are. So we have that. Okay, good. You know what? One thing that I forgot to do that I knew I was going to forget to do, even though I wrote it down, one thing we have to do is install Axios, because that's what I'm going to be using. We could use the Fetch API, but I'm just going to go with Axios because I feel like that's the most common package that goes along with making calls to an API. So what we're going to do is, okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to make a call to an API, which is that JSON placeholder that you saw, and we're going to get the data. We're going to store the data in our state, okay? And then we're going to, show it on screen. It's going to be a real simple thing, but I'm going to show you how to show you what's, the concepts of state. Okay, so let's do that. So let's install npm install, I'm going to do Axios. That just takes a few seconds. Okay, so now that that's installed, we'll npm start again, so we'll restart our dev server. It'll give us another window of the exact same thing. Okay, here's our hello world again. So right now I'm gonna copy this, okay? And we're gonna go back to VS Code, okay? You know what? This gave us, okay, let's do a component. So we're gonna add a folder, new components, and then we're gonna add a file, new file, we're gonna say to-dos, okay? Whoops, okay? Gonna make that to-dos.js. Let me delete that. Get ahead of myself here. New file, to-dos.js. There we go. So they know it's a JavaScript file. Then I'm going to do RCC. I believe it is. No, I'm supposed to have React component. There we go. No. Should be React class component. Okay, never mind. It's not working. All right, let's see. We're going to do import React and hang on a sec. This is all right. This is good actually. React.js code snippets. Yeah, should be working. Just come to here and we want React.js code snippets, which it should be working. Code snippets. Ba, 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 ba. Installation. Yeah, see? RCC should be for React class component. And it should give you that. I don't know. It's not working right now. Oops. Let me see. RCC. One last chance. No, it's not working for some reason. RCC. Sorry, guys. I don't know why it's not working. This is really... Maybe it's me. I don't know. I guess we'll have to type it out the long way. I'll try to do it as quickly as possible. Component from React. By the way, when you're importing a core React module, import, I spell it right? We also want to import Axios from .axios. So if you're importing something that is either a package or a if you're importing something that's from a package or a core React thing, then you have to you just type it out like this. If you're import like header, like a class that you created from, say, components, your components folder, slash header. Oops, wow, can't spell. Header. You do have to put the // which means it's in that component. The components folder is in that base folder itself. But since we're not doing that, that's fine. So we're going to do class. We'll call this to-dos extends component. I forget what the hell it is. I think that's it. And then every class needs a render method. Doesn't necessarily need a return, but it usually does have one. So return, there we go. And then, of course, you could either do one of two things. If you have more than one class in a file, you can do this, export default, default, or you could do it at the end, which is pretty common. Down here, export here. I'm not going to do that, but that's what you could do. Let's see. I forget what the heck it looks like. Okay. Okay. Need an extra thing there. Okay. Anyway, so let's get into our state. So this, state equals an object, and we're going to say to-dos. Now, right here, we're going to say is equal to an empty array. right here, we're setting the initial state. So if we here were to do, let's say, a div, okay? So we could do this dot state dot to-dos. Okay, let's see what that gives us. Save all here. Now, of course, we're not going to see anything. We have to inspect. Excuse me. We have to look at our components, I think. Wait, where the heck is it? Profiler? No, I don't know. Let's do this. Let's delete this. And let's do right here console.log. I should have done this from the beginning. I'm sorry. This state dot to-dos. Huh. Give me a hassle. Huh. Give me a fucking hassle. Property to-dos.console. Why does it give me a fucking hassle? Let's see. State, yeah. Yeah. B state equals, yeah. That's fucking weird. Export default. Force a habit. Anyway, so we're setting the initial state. Now we're going to do where we basically reset the state. So right now it's empty, which is initial. Okay, we're going to do component did mount, which is a lifecycle method that I mentioned before, and there's component did update. Basically, it's whenever something happens, React has a built-in series of functions that you can use for that. So this is that, right? And inside of that, we're going to do our Axios, which is this, what do you call it, variable up here, and it's going to be a .get method here. Okay, and we're going to go back because I missed it, and we're going to get our JSON placeholder. Okay, and we're going to put it in there like that. Okay, so now that's our Axios. That's going to get, and similarly you would do here would be fetch, similar thing obviously, but we're doing Axios dot get. Then because Axios is promise based, actually we can move this down the next line just for consistency's sake. Then we do dot then rather. Okay, And then we're going to do our response with an arrow function or a fat arrow function. Okay, and then we're going to create a const to store our information coming back. We're going to say to-dos, okay, is equal to res.data, okay, and then below that we're going to do, right, yeah, I'm sorry, below that we're going to do this dot set state has parentheses and curly brackets. This dot set state is now going to be set to to-dos. Okay, so the state is set here. The state is called to-dos, and you can have, other things like is complete. Whoops, can't spell it. Wow, complete, and that can be set to false usually, and then it's for like to check off if something, it's either true or false, but we're not going to get into that. Okay, so now that we've got that, let's do .log. Let's do console.log to-dos. Oops, hit the cap lock, sorry. To-dos, okay? Let's see what that gives us. Save all. Go to our thingy here. Good, it gave us nothing. Oh. That could be why. Okay, so import to-dos from, remember I said for this /components, because it's in the components folder slash, what the heck did I call it? Just to-dos. To-dos. And then we're going to get rid of this H string. We don't need that. And then to-dos, closing HTML tag, and let's do that. And there we go. Here's our 200. I think there's a way to limit them, but whatever. So anyway, so this is now our state, okay? And anytime there's now in this, because it's controlled by JSON placeholder, there won't be any updates. But anytime someone was to add a user or add a post or something like that, the state would re-render, and then the application itself would re-render to show you that. So here, now let's show it out on the screen rather than console.log it, now that we know it works. So let's delete that. All right, we're gonna say let's do an unordered list, just to be wacky, and we're going to do parentheses this dot state dot to-dos, and then we're going to use the high order array method dot map, which then gives us, we then pick a variable, and we're going to do it in a fat arrow function, so you could do like this. But since fat arrow functions, you don't need the parentheses if there's only one argument to do. And then our fat arrow function. Okay, and then we're going to, no, I'm sorry, we don't need the parentheses, the second curly braces here. Let's get rid of that. But we can go down on the next line. We're going to give ourselves a list item, and then we're going to do to-do, which is this variable right here that we just set dot, and I forget what the heck it is. Give me a sec. What is the dot title? We'll get the title. Whoops. To-dos dot title. Okay. Good. I believe that should give us the desired result. Yes. So it's a list, obviously, and it's got all the titles. Now, see, it's giving us this warning because, this is getting a little out of the realm of state, but you need to do key equals to do dot ID. No, not that. I don't know why I just did that. What the heck? Because React needs to know which individual thing to update. So if something were to see, we don't have that error anymore because each one of these has its own ID now. Because so that React knows which one to update, and if it doesn't have a unique key, then it gets a little confused. So that is our state. Okay, so we set it initially up here, and then we did our component did mount function. We reset the state with this dot set state to this new, from this URL, and this could be anything. In fact, if you had a node server backend, you would just have like posts, because that would be your server backend, and then you would have, you would have your node server folder down here. And I think that's it. So that's it for our state tutorial. So state can be modified, changed, updated, etc. Props cannot be. And we'll get into that later on. Okay. Um, okay. Well, I think that's it for our video. So hopefully my take or my explanation of React State is, I'm not going to be it's not going to be the best explanation out there, but it is an explanation, and it does work. And so, when you're learning code, you have to, you have to learn from as many sources as possible. I've been studying martial arts for over 15 years, and the best thing is to just, be a sponge. You don't have to go crazy, but start small and just learn from different people. Watch the different videos. Don't just watch one person and try to completely copy what they're doing, because it's not always going to be the situation. I'm sure this way is a pretty common way, but at the same time, it's not the only way. So anyway, so if you found this video helpful in any way, like it up. I would appreciate that. If you have any follow-up questions, please post a comment. If you hate my incessant rambling at the beginning and end of these videos, let me know. And also subscribe to this channel, because I am going to be continuing this React tutorial course in small bite-sized chunks. And also I have a PHP course that's in progress now. There's one video now, and I'm going to be adding to it. There's also a CSS and HTML course that I want to have come out. So those are three very ambitious things. I also want to get into start doing React Native, because that's a really fun one, but it can be a little confusing in the beginning, as you can imagine. So I want to just sort of explain that, because it's really great once you start to get into it and you start to understand how to use it. But anyway, I'll stop talking. All right, like, subscribe, and comment. Thanks, guys. See you next time.